My name is Adam Brown, A-D-A-M-B-R-O-W-N. I'd like to thank this court for giving me the opportunity to speak today. The events of April 24th have significantly changed my life. The defendant's actions on that day had a deep impact on me, which will affect me for the rest of my life. He left me with both physical and emotional scars that will be constant reminders of the violence that was inflicted upon me that day. First, the physical scars. I suffered from multiple stab wounds to my neck, chest, and hands. The injuries to my neck being the most significant and nearly ended my life. My right internal jugular vein was severed and had to be ligated and is no longer functioning. I had stab wounds that punctured my trachea and caused significant damage and impaired my ability to speak and swallow. The wounds on my hand were caused by me trying to protect myself from the stabbing that he inflicted upon me that day. As a result of these injuries, I suffered from major blood loss and required resuscitation before emergency surgery could be done to save my life. I was in surgery for 6 hours when I woke up. I could not speak or swallow. I had a tracheostomy so that I could breathe, and a feeding tube so that I could eat. I was in the ICU for several days. I required intensive physical and speech therapy to improve my ability to speak and swallow. This continued for several months after I was discharged. I have nerve damage that affected my ability to use my right arm and causes me pain. This will also require ongoing therapy. I have no sensation to my right ear and most of my neck, and it is unknown if this will ever return. Although these physical wounds are healing, I will have the scars from them for the rest of my life. Now for the emotional damage I see. I suffer from symptoms of PTSD, including flashback, intrusive thoughts, hypervigilance, fearfulness, guilt, anger, dissociation, and panic. I also have symptoms of depression and anxiety, such as increased worry, insomnia, sadness, lack of motivation, anhedonia, low energy, feeling overwhelmed, irritability, racing thoughts, poor focus, and concentration. These symptoms have been intrusive in my life and still affect me today. Because of this, I have had to undergo intensive trauma and EMDR therapy to try and control these symptoms. Writing this statement has caused me to have an increase in all these symptoms due to having to relive the events of that day and the trauma that I continue to have from it. I have been fearful to work from my office at Signature Health and to see patients in person. I am only able to see patients virtually from the safety and security of my home. This attack has also affected my relationship with my wife due to symptoms of PTSD that we both have. I've had less interest in doing activities that I normally enjoy, such as spending time with my friends and family, working out with my friends, and spending time with my children. I feel anxious and on edge, which causes me to have increased irritability with my wife and children. I have trouble keeping up with the household chores and activities. Loud noises cause me to feel increased anxiety and fearfulness, which I feel throughout my whole body. I have had multiple times where the PTSD symptoms could be triggered by reminders of this event. During these times, I will feel increased fearfulness, dissociation from the environment I'm in, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, and panic. When this happens, it will take me several hours to calm myself. This has not only affected me, but it's also affected members of my family and coworkers who were there that day. My children are young, and they struggle to try to process and understand what happened to their father on that day, and not knowing why Daddy was not coming home from work. Everyone in my family and friends close to me had to deal with the realization that I might not have survived that day. This has caused significant emotional stress for everyone involved, which is still healing to this day. On that day, he almost took a husband away from his wife, a father away from his children, and a brother away from his siblings, and a son away from his parents. The impact that it had on my coworkers who were there that day has also been great. They witnessed firsthand the attack on me and saw the violence of his actions. He passed several of them in the hallway with a knife in his hand as they came out of their office to respond to my screams for help. My supervisor tried to get me to safety in her office, putting her own life in danger to try to save mine. Several others tried to physically stop him as he was actively stabbing me with the knife, putting their own lives in danger. When the attack was done, several of my coworkers came to my aid as I was bleeding to death, applying pressure to my wounds and my neck to try to control the bleeding and offering support and hope that I would live despite me having already accepted death. Everyone who was there that day witnessed the horrific crime, and they were deeply affected. They all suffer from PTSD that requires them to get intensive therapy as well. Many are still struggling with the symptoms to this day. As you can see, they're all here in support of me today. Due to the nature of this crime, I feel that the defendant should get the maximum allowable sentence under law. This is based not only on the horrific nature of the attack on me and the violence of his actions, but also the significant risk that the defendant poses to others in the community at large. The attack on me that day was premeditated, unprovoked, and had the intent to end my life. I say this because he brought the knife in that day with the intention to use it to kill me. His attack on me that day was not isolated to one assault. After stabbing me in my office, he stalked me through the rest of the office floor to continue his attack on me with the intent to kill me. He did not stop his attack as I tried to flee to safety, despite having several opportunities to make an escape through two doors that he passed that he could have exited to leave the building. He chose instead to continue his attack with the intent to kill me. The attack on me was also unprovoked. He had no history of violent behaviors towards me, and he had no indication that he would do this to me that day. Every appointment we had prior to this day consisted of friendly conversations between the two of us to check in on his well-being and to treat any mental symptoms that he may find distressful for him. We had no history of confrontation. I strive to build a patient-provider relationship based on respect between us. I have both a legal and a moral obligation to provide psychiatric care in a manner that is respectful, based on trust, and will do no harm. I was not given that in return. On that day, he broke that trust. He chose to try to end my life for reasons that are unknowable to me to this day. Not only did he break that trust in our relationship, but he has made me question whether I can feel safe and trustful in relationships with the hundreds of other patients that I see. I also feel that he poses a threat to the community at large. The unprovoked nature of his attack on me shows that he is capable of doing this at any time to anyone. Although his attack was focused on me that day, it changed the lives of dozens of people. Right now, he poses a risk to everyone that he has contact with in his life, and I feel that giving him the maximum sentence that this court sees fit to give would help protect me and others. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'm sorry for what you had to go through. And how are you doing today?
It's a rough day.
So are you back to work full-time, or are you?
I am. I started back in August. Like I said, working exclusively from the home. I did go to the office a couple times, but I had to leave early on those days because those were triggered days for me.
Okay.
An example of that was one day I was in my office and music was playing, and it was a Wednesday, and the attack happened on the Wednesday. A song came on, a song that I didn't necessarily pay any attention to, and the same music plays on Wednesdays, and I instantly went into flashbacks and had to leave.
Okay. How long were you offering him treatment?
For about 2 years.
2 years.
Maybe a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want me to know? All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else wants to speak?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
We have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. You can bring your client back up, and Mr. Halasz, you have the opportunity now to speak. You have the opportunity now to speak. What would you like me to know?
Your Honor, I just want to say that I'm sorry for what I did.
That's it, Judge. We would thank the court.
All right. You know, I have two requests here. I have one for community control and one for the max. And I can tell you that this case is very troubling to me. And when I saw the video, it was, even though I wasn't there, even though, you know, this is, what, 8 months later or 7 months later, I can tell you that I felt the fear of him going through the halls, stalking his victim. After consideration of the record, the oral statements made today, looking at the pre-sentence investigation report, looking at the purposes and principles of sentencing under Ohio Revised Code, Section 2929.11, the seriousness and recidivism factors relevant to the offense and offender pursuant to Revised Code, Section 2929.12, and the need for deterrence, incapacitation, rehabilitation, and restitution, the court does find that a prison term is consistent with the purposes and principles of sentencing set forth in Section 2929.11 of the Revised Code, and finds that the offender is not amenable to an available community control sanction. Furthermore, this court has considered the factors set forth in 2929.12 and finds that a prison term is commensurate with the seriousness of the defendant's conduct, its impact on the victims, and is reasonably necessary to deter the offender in order to protect the public from future crimes, and would not place a necessary burden on government resources. This crime was, in my opinion, so horrible that even I know all of the staff has to also have PTSD from this, because of the way it occurred, and the stalking, and sort of and the seriousness of the injuries. These injuries are extremely serious. I do not think, and as you can tell, I don't believe that community control is appropriate in this case. And I am mindful of his mental condition, that he has a schizo affect. Let me just make sure I'm saying it correctly here. I am mindful of his condition, and I have the reintegration plan that was prepared on behalf of the by the mental health jail liaison specialist, Lottie Gray. And I have reviewed this. But even with all of this, I believe that this is a serious crime. And I believe that the treatment that he needs, that he should be able to get, if it's not the best, I get it. I mean, it's in prison, but I believe that that's where he needs to be at this time. With that being said, it's not often that I say what I'm going to say, but I do believe in this case, as to the count 1 attempted murder, I believe that the 11 years is what he should be sentenced to. And I don't say that often to give the max, but I think this is an instance where the max is not only justified, but I think necessary to help deal with the pain and the trauma that these victims, and it wasn't just the one victim. I mean, you have victims, all of the employees who were there that day, they're all victims here. I feel like a victim just by seeing the video. I mean, that's how it has affected me. Pursuant to Reagan Totes, Mr. Halasz, based upon your conduct in the prison, if your conduct is against what the rules and regulations are, they can keep you up to an additional 5.5 years, so up to 16.5 years. If your conduct remains in line with the policies and laws of the prison, then you would be out at 11 years. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Upon your release from prison, the State of Ohio Adult Parole Authority, and not this court, would have a mandatory minimum of 2 years up to a maximum of 5 years of what is called post-release control. If you fail to meet the terms and conditions of any post-release control supervision imposed upon you, then the Adult Parole Authority can modify and or extend your supervision and make it more restrictive. They can incarcerate you for up to half of the original sentence imposed by this court. They can charge you with a new offense called escape, another felony where you could face additional prison time. And if you commit a new crime while on post-release control, you can face the maximum penalty under the law for the new crime committed. Unless the defendant is serving a prison term that cannot be reduced under the law, defendant may be eligible to earn 1 or 5 days credit towards his sentence for each completed month during which the defendant participates in educational or other programs. In addition, the defendant may earn up to 5 days credit towards his sentence for successful completion of a second such program. This earned credit is not automatic but must be earned by the defendant. The defendant is assessed court costs in this case. However, those court costs can be paid through court community work service within the confines of the prison with the warden's approval in lieu of any cash payments. Mr. Halasz, you have the right to appeal this sentence within 30 days of the entry of the court's sentencing decision, and you have the right to have a notice of appeal timely filed on your behalf. If you're unable to pay the costs of an appeal, you have the right to an appeal without payment. If you're unable to afford counsel for an appeal, counsel will be appointed for you. If you're unable to pay the cost of documents necessary to effect that appeal, those documents will be provided to you without cost. Do you understand everything that I've said?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
Do you have any questions you need to ask me at this time?
No, Your Honor.
All right, defendant is ordered to the custody of the sheriff for transfer to the appropriate correctional facility. Credit will be given for all time served in case number 691650. Anything further on behalf of the state of Ohio?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further on behalf of the defendant?
I would ask that the court consider waiving his costs. He falls under 150% of the federal poverty guidelines. The court gave him a maximum term. At a minimum, I would ask that he be allowed to have some commissary while he's there so that he can have hygiene products.
He will be able to. What I did, I ordered the court costs through Court Community Work Service. So they won't collect money. It'll just be through Court Community Work Service.
Thank you,
All
Judge.
right, thank you very much. Mr. Halasz, good luck to you.
Thank you.
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide open.